A cold breeze drifted through the wide, polished glass doors of the Orion Galleria, the most expensive and luxurious mall in the city. Shoppers in silk scarves and pressed suits glided past marble statues, sipping imported coffee and clutching branded handbags. Amid all this shine and splendor, a small figure approached the front entrance. Her name was Mama Dunny, though few people knew her name anymore. She wore a faded headscarf and a wrapper that had once been bright red, but had long since dulled from years of use. Her rubber slippers flapped softly against the pavement as she walked slowly, her back slightly bent, a leather handbag clutched tightly under her arm. It was old. So was she. As she neared the glass doors, her eyes lit up, not because of the glitter, but because of the memories. She reached for the door, but before her wrinkled hand could even touch it, a tall, uniformed security guard stepped in front of her, arms folded. "Madam," he said, brows furrowed, "this is not for beggars." Mama Dunny blinked. "I'm not begging, my son. I just want to go in. You can't be loitering around here. Go somewhere else. I beg. We have VIPs inside." She paused. Her voice was calm but cracked with age. "I'm not loitering. I have business inside." The security guard smirked. "You have business inside? In this mall? Dressed like this?" Behind him, the automatic door slid open briefly, revealing air-conditioned luxury. Inside, the mall manager, Amaka Adnaran, in her crisp gray suit and pencil heels, noticed a commotion. She stepped outside, heels clacking like power on pavement. "What's going on here?" The guard stiffened. "This woman is trying to come in. Says she has business here." Amaka glanced over Mama Dunny with a curl of her lip. "She's clearly not our clientele. We cater to people of a higher bracket." "I'm not here to beg," Mama Dunny said gently. "I only came to see something." You came to see what wealth looks like." Amaka interrupted, her tone mocking. "You've seen it. Now move along. We have investors arriving." A crowd began to gather, smartphones raised. Mama Dunny looked into Amaka's eyes and simply said, "Be careful how you treat people." The manager scoffed. "Be careful? Madam, you're the one who should be careful wandering where you don't belong." Mama Dunny lowered her eyes, turned around, and walked away. But she didn't walk with shame. She walked with memory. Many years ago, in that same place where the mall now stood, Mama Dunny had stood beside her husband Babatunde on a plot of land full of nothing but dust and promise. "We'll build something here," he had said, smiling. "A market?" "No," he chuckled. "A center, a place for everyone, a community. Poor or rich. No one should feel small walking in." They saved every kobo, every naira, poured sweat and blood into a dream that took decades to grow. They called it a Dunny Plaza. Until one day, after Babatunde's sudden stroke, everything began to crumble. She was tricked. Documents she couldn't read, lawyers who smiled and lied, signatures she was coaxed into making. She lost it all, or so they thought. Back in the present, a teenage girl named Zara, who had recorded the confrontation at the mall, uploaded the video to TikTok with the caption, "Old woman blocked from entering Orion Mall. Treated like trash, crying face, broken heart, hashtag. This is wrong, hashtag respect elders." By noon, it had 1 million views. By evening, it was on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. "Who is she?" everyone asked. "Why did they treat her like that?" Mama Dunny sat on a rickety bench in front of her modest bungalow in Ojodu. Chickens clucked nearby. A small generator coughed into life in the background. She stirred a pot of okra soup absent-mindedly. Her neighbor, Ayabola, waddled over. "Mama Dunny, you're trending." "I'm what?" "Trending. On the internet. That mall manager insulted you, and now the whole world day vex." Mama Dunny sighed. "Let the world do what it wants. Me, I only want to see the mall one last time." "And? But why?" She looked into the distance, eyes glassy. "Because I built it." Meanwhile, a young investigative journalist named David Aluko, known for chasing human interest stories, came across the viral video. Something about the old woman's composure struck him. He dug deeper. Found her name through a relative who commented online. He went to see her. "Ma, is it true?" David asked, notebook in hand. "You helped build the Orion Mall?" She hesitated, then slowly rose and shuffled into her bedroom. She returned with a dusty, cracked folder. Inside were old architectural sketches signed by her late husband, photographs of her at the original site, a land deed, a legal document, partially torn with the words, "Original developer, Adunny and Ton Enterprises." David's eyes widened. "Ma, this means you're still the legal founder." She nodded. They stole the name, changed the facade, but they never removed the root. David whispered, "We're going to tell your story." Inside the mall, Amaka stood in front of a mirror in the staff lounge, touching up her lipstick. Her assistant barged in, phone in hand. "Ma, the video, you've seen it?" "I don't care about social media drama," Amaka said. "No, Ma, you need to see this." She turned the screen. There was a video and a new headline on Channel's TV. "Exposed. Woman humiliated at mall, maybe its true founder." Amaka's face turned pale. David's special feature aired the next morning on NTA and went viral again. He stood at the same plot, holding the faded documents. "Today, we reveal the truth behind Nigeria's most prestigious mall and the woman whose legacy was buried beneath concrete and greed." Cut to interviews. Cut to documents. Cut to emotional music. The internet exploded with support. Hashtags trended. Hashtag justice for Adunny. Hashtag she built. 3 days later, escorted by the media, David, and a team of lawyers, Mama Adunny returned to Orion Mall. Same old rubber slippers. Same dignity. As they neared the glass doors, the security guard from before stepped aside, trembling. "Welcome, Ma," he whispered. Amaka stood in the lobby, white-faced, watching her walk in. "Mama Adunny," she said shakily. "I didn't know." "You didn't care," Mama Adunny interrupted, softly. "That's the problem." The next day, at a hastily called emergency meeting with the mall's board and investors, lawyers presented the real ownership documents. Amaka tried to defend herself, but the CEO shook his head. "You publicly humiliated the founder of this mall. But you're terminated." Mama Adunny stood tall at the head of the table, dressed in a crisp iro and buba this time. "No one should be denied dignity," she said. "Not in a place that was built for the people." With her new legal recognition as the original founder and developer of the land, Mama Adunny's reinstatement wasn't just symbolic. It was legal. A court order gave her full rights to review the operations of the Orion Galleria. Her first stop? Amaka's office. Flanked by David and her legal representative, she walked into the sleek executive space with glass windows and imported furnishings. The same space where Amaka once belittled her. The receptionist blinked. "Sorry, Ma, this office is..." "She owns the building," David replied. "Unlock it." The security guard who once blocked her now held the door open. Mama Adunny stepped inside, placed her worn leather bag on the glass desk, and said quietly, "Back to where I should have always been." As Mama Adunny settled into the office, her fingers ran across a locked drawer in the antique filing cabinet tucked in the corner. It was old for years. She asked for the key. Inside, she found a sealed envelope addressed to her in her late husband's handwriting. She opened it, her hands trembling. "My Adunny, if you are reading this, then the world has tried to erase us. But they can never erase our love or our purpose. Fight. If they ever take what is yours, don't bow. Stand, because you are more powerful than you know. With all my love, Tund." She pressed a letter to her chest and cried, not tears of pain, but of promise. The mall staff gathered in the central courtyard under the skylight. Whispers filled the air. Everyone was waiting. Then they saw her, dressed in a regal green iro and buba, her scarf tied with quiet elegance. David stood beside her. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mama Adunny, the true founder of Orion Galleria." There was silence, then one clap, then another. Soon, the staff stood and applauded. She raised a hand. "I am not here to take revenge. I am here to restore purpose. This mall was not meant to shame the poor. It was meant to unite a community. Some of the staff wiped away tears. Amaka, watching from afar, clenched her fists. Mama Dunny ordered a complete audit of the mall's financial records. She brought in a trusted friend, Mr. Ikenna, an elderly accountant who had worked with her late husband years ago. Days turned into nights as they combed through files. And then they found it. Amaka had been embezzling funds, falsifying contracts, and inflating vendor prices. Millions of naira rerouted to shell companies. David prepared the full expose. Inside the conference room, Amaka sat across from Mama Dunny and the board of directors. David placed the audit report on the table. You stole from the company you didn't build. Amaka laughed nervously. This is ridiculous. You're trusting her word. Mama Dunny didn't raise her voice. You can disrespect me. You can lie. But numbers don't lie. The CEO of the board looked grim. Amaka Aneron, you are hereby reported to the EFCC. Your services are permanently terminated. Security escorted her out. And just before she left, she turned to Mama Dunny and whispered, You will regret this. But Mama Dunny only smiled. God bless you, my dear. The next morning, banners were hung. Orion Galleria, now reconnected with its founding purpose. Mama Dunny began implementing new policies. Free weekend market stalls for local artisans. Monthly outreach days offering free space for public health clinics and job fairs. Scholarship fund for young entrepreneurs and designers. An internal code of conduct. Every human deserves dignity. Some big luxury brands threatened to pull out. She didn't beg them. She replaced them with up-and-coming Nigerian-owned fashion labels. And the mall only got more popular. David's documentary series on the story of Mama Dunny aired on Netflix under the title, The Woman Who Built the Mall. It won an African Movie Academy Award for Best Documentary. In his acceptance speech, he said, This story isn't just about a building. It's about how far humility can carry you and how loud, quiet dignity can roar. He held up the award and said, To Mama Dunny, you built more than a mall. You built hope. Meanwhile, Amaka's arrest made headlines. Her mugshot trended on Twitter. In court, she tried to plead temporary insanity, but the evidence was too solid. She was sentenced to 12 years in prison for fraud and embezzlement. At sentencing, she looked over at the courtroom door, hoping Mama Dunny would be there to gloat, but she wasn't, because Mama Dunny didn't need revenge. She had legacy. With her reclaimed wealth and the restitution recovered from Amaka's embezzlement, Mama Dunny built a free vocational school next to the mall. It was named Tund and a Dunny Center for Opportunity. It offered classes in tailoring, technology, catering, and business for underprivileged youth. On its opening day, Mama Dunny cut the ribbon with tears in her eyes. This, she said, was always a dream. One afternoon, a young mother in faded clothes tried to enter the mall with her child. A new security guard stopped her briefly. Ma, are you? Then he looked again, saw her eyes, her tired smile, and he stepped back. Welcome, Ma. You're always welcome here. From a bench nearby, Mama Dunny watched. She smiled. The circle had completed. Justice had been served. One morning, as the sun rose gently over Lagos, Mama Dunny sat on a garden bench beside the mall's fountain, sipping tea from a small thermos. The air was still, peaceful. A man in a crisp navy suit approached her, looking unsure. Excuse me, Ma. Are you a Dunny Tund? I am, she replied with a polite smile. He extended a thick envelope. I've been looking for you for 18 years. She took the envelope, puzzled. Who are you? My name is Chief Adebayo Ishola. You once saved my mother's life. 18 years ago, a young, desperate boy had approached a street vendor's stall. His mother was sick, and he couldn't afford medicine. People chased him away. But Mama Dunny, who ran that little stall back then to survive after her husband's passing, gave him money. She didn't ask for repayment. She didn't even ask for his name. I always told myself, Chief Adebayo said, if I ever succeeded, I would find that woman. And now you're a billionaire investor in commercial property, and I want to invest in you. He knelt before her. In memory of your kindness, With Chief Adebayo's investment and her new influence, Mama Dunny began envisioning something greater than a mall, a movement. Together, they launched the Dunny Project, a multi-city initiative to revamp neglected markets into clean, organized spaces, create job hubs inside malls for artisans, offer mentorship to female entrepreneurs over 50. She turned insult into inspiration. Chief Adebayo said at the press launch, "Now we're building a legacy." Governor Tunde Okonjo, a respected reformist, watched everything unfold from afar. Then one day, a letter arrived at Mama Dunny's office. "Madam Dunny, what you have done is more powerful than 100 political campaigns. I would like to honor you with the state's highest civilian award at the upcoming Independence Day Gala. Respectfully, Governor Okonjo." Tears filled her eyes again, this time not from pain but pride. As preparations for the gala began, stylists offered to dress her in designer labels, but she declined. Instead, she opened an old wooden chest in her bedroom. Inside lay a gown hand-woven in osso oak fabric, faded but beautiful. She had worn it the day she and her husband purchased the land, decades ago. She would wear it again to remind the world. You can dress a woman in diamonds, but dignity wears its own shine. The Independence Day Gala was star-studded. Politicians, business tycoons, celebrities. But the room fell into a hushed awe when Mama Dunny walked in. Heads turned. Some gasped, some stood. Even the governor rose from his seat. She walked with no jewelry, no entourage, only that beautiful faded gown and a calm strength in her step. The crowd erupted in applause that echoed for minutes. When it was her turn to speak, the governor handed her the Golden Award plaque. Then, at the podium, she began, "I was blocked from entering the building I built, laughed at, mocked, shamed. But let me tell you what they couldn't block, my purpose. Never let the world define you by your wrinkles, your slippers, or your silence. They thought I was weak because I was quiet. But even thunder begins as a whisper." The room was silent. Then the crowd stood, in tears, clapping, even. Celebrities posted her speech online. Inside a prison cell, Amaka sat beside an old radio. She listened to the gala broadcast replay. When Mama Dunny's speech ended, she stared at the wall, eyes hollow. Regret wrapped itself around her like a noose. She whispered, "I should have let her in." Her cellmate, a former banker, nodded. Pride locks doors, but humility opens palaces. Back at the Orion Galleria, Mama Dunny unveiled a new section of the mall, the Wall of Names. Every cleaner, builder, vendor, and craftsman who had helped build the original structure, whether living or past, had their names engraved in gold. They may not have had titles, she said, but they built kingdoms. The wall became a site of pilgrimage for young Nigerians seeking hope. One afternoon, a little boy tugged at her wrapper. "Grandma Dunny," he asked, "why didn't you get angry at the people who insulted you?" She smiled and bent to his level. "Because when someone throws stones, you can either throw them back or build with them." He nodded slowly. "I want to build." She touched his cheek and said softly, "Then you're already richer than most." One warm afternoon, while addressing a group of young female entrepreneurs at the vocational center, Mama Dunny paused mid-sentence. Her hand went to her chest. The room spun. She stumbled backward and collapsed to the floor. "Mama!" Voices screamed as chaos erupted. Paramedics were called. The city held its breath. Social media lit up. "Pray for Mama Dunny. She gave us everything. Don't take her yet. #Stay Strong Mama." The hospital admitted her immediately. Outside the ICU, the halls were filled. David, Chief Adebayo, Governor Okonjo, dozens of students from the vocational center, security guards from the mall, even vendors who once sold bread outside the original plaza. People came with candles, with prayers, with tears. "She's more than a person," one woman whispered. "She's the reason I didn't give up." Inside, Mama Dunny lay still, hooked to wires and machines. But her spirit was fighting. That night, in a fevered dream, she saw her late husband. He stood beside a half-built structure, smiling. "Tund," she whispered. "You did it," he said. You finish what we started. I'm tired. He reached out his hand. Then rest. Or go back. They still need you. She looked over her shoulder. Behind her stood hundreds of children, women, men, all waiting. She nodded and woke up when word spread that Mama Dunny had opened her eyes. Lagos rejoiced. Car horns blared like celebration drums. The crowd outside the hospital sang and danced. In the hospital lobby, a piano player performed a soft rendition of Great Is Thy Faithfulness. She was weak but smiling. I guess my assignment isn't over yet, she told David, who had tears in his eyes. 3 weeks after her recovery, Mama Dunny made a request that surprised everyone. I want to visit Amaka. Why? David asked. She looked at him with steady eyes. Because healing isn't just about the body. It's about the heart. They drove quietly to the prison. Amaka was thinner now, eyes darker, hands shaking. When she was led into the visitor's room and saw Mama Dunny, she froze. You came, she whispered. I did. I don't deserve it. No, you don't, Mama Dunny said gently. But grace doesn't wait for who deserves it. Silence hung like thick smoke. I hated you, Amaka finally admitted, because you reminded me of everything I'm not. I forgave you a long time ago. Tears fell down Amaka's cheeks. Then maybe one day, I'll learn to forgive myself. As her body slowed down, Mama Dunny began to think about the future. She called a meeting with her board of trustees and made an announcement. I will be stepping down as director at the end of the year. Gasps filled the room. But not because I am tired, she smiled. Because I am ready to pass the torch. Everyone turned. David stood beside her, stunned. David Aluko, she said, you saw me when the world didn't. You didn't just report my story. You helped restore it. I'm just a journalist, he stammered. You're a builder now. Under David's new leadership, the Dunny Project expanded to 5 more cities. The Orion Galleria became a blueprint for ethical commerce. Mama Dunny began writing her memoir with Zara, the girl who had originally recorded the viral video. Title, Let Her In. When the book launched, it sold out in 24 hours. On a breezy December evening, Mama Dunny sat down with the BBC for a final televised interview. What would you say to the girl who was turned away at the mall entrance? She smiled. I'd tell her, walk away, but don't walk empty. Every rejection is a seed. If you plant it right, it'll grow into something beautiful. What would you say to the people who mistreated you? I'd thank them, because they revealed who I was to the world. Months later, Mama Dunny passed away peacefully in her sleep. No struggle, just stillness. The city wept. Flags flew at half-mast. Schools held moments of silence. Churches and mosques rang bells. Her funeral was attended by thousands, rich and poor alike. She was buried beside her husband on the same plot of land where they once dreamed of building a center for the people. And carved into her gravestone were these words. She came with nothing. She built everything. She gave it away. The morning after Mama Dunny's passing, front pages across Nigeria read, The mother of a nation has rested. A Dunny-ton, woman of dignity, builder of dreams. Her story was rebroadcast across Africa, even internationally. CNN Africa aired a tribute segment titled, The Woman Who Rewrote Power. Young girls across the continent held up her photo. Teachers taught her quotes in classrooms. A candlelight vigil was held in over 50 cities. The world didn't just mourn her, it remembered her. A week after her burial, her legal team gathered to read her will. David, Chief Adebayo, Zara, Governor Okonjo, and a few trusted associates sat silently. The lawyer opened the document. To my daughter in Nigeria, I leave not money, but a blueprint. Every property I own shall be converted into a community-focused development center, schools, hospitals, or entrepreneurial hubs, whichever serves the people most. Gasps. To David Aluko, I leave full ownership of the Dunny Project. May you never forget what it means to listen first, speak last, and serve always. David broke down in tears. On what would have been her 81st birthday, David organized a memorial celebration at the Orion Galleria. A children's choir, composed entirely of kids from poor backgrounds, sang her favorite hymn, "It Is Well With My Soul." The crowd, dressed in white, held up photos of Mama Dunny. Then the curtain dropped to reveal a bronze statue in her image, seated on a bench, smiling gently, hand extended outward, as if still welcoming people in. The plaque beneath read, "Come as you are." A Dunny turned from her prison cell. Amaka watched the statue's unveiling on a small TV. For months, she had remained silent. But that day, she requested to speak at the Dunny Vocational School via video call. Permission was granted. Students gathered in the hall. The screen flickered. Amaka appeared, hair graying, face humbled. "I am the woman who tried to block a door I didn't build. But Mama Dunny didn't block me back. She taught me grace. And if I can pass that on, even from behind bars, then maybe my time here will mean something." The crowd clapped, not out of praise, but of understanding. Months later, while Zara was archiving footage of the official documentary, she came across an SD card. Marked, "Do Not Delete." Inside it was raw footage, never seen by anyone. It was a video diary Mama Dunny had recorded during her hospital stay. In the clip, her face was frail, but her eyes still glowed. "If you're watching this, then I'm gone. Don't cry too long. I had more than I ever asked for. If there's one thing I learned, it's that legacy isn't about buildings or money or statues. It's about the hearts you light up before your own candle burns out." Zara wiped her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Mama." David, now in his early 40s, stood at a podium 2 years after her death. Behind him was the Dunny International Center for Justice and Innovation, now the largest free training institute in West Africa. He smiled as he addressed a fresh group of students. "You may not have degrees. You may not have money, but you have value. You are not empty. The world may block your way, but you must build your own door." And then he said the words that had been etched into his soul. "When someone throws stones, you can either throw them back or build with them." The crowd echoed, "Build with them." A tourist from Canada walked through the Orion Galleria and came upon the bronze statue. He turned to a janitor nearby. "Excuse me, who is she?" The janitor, with a proud smile, replied, "That woman built this place with nothing but faith and kindness. She was blocked at this door, but ended up owning it. Her name is Mama Dunny. She's the mother of this mall, and maybe the city too." The tourist stood in silence for a long time, taking in the weight of that story. In a quiet town in Kwara, a young girl named Irene watched Mama Dunny's story on YouTube. She lived in a small shack, often mocked for her dreams of starting a tech school. She replayed Mama's interview over and over. "Walk away, but don't walk empty." She wrote it down, plastered it on her wall. Years later, Irene would found her own company, a Dunny Tech, providing free tech training for girls across Africa. The ripple had become a wave. Years had passed. Orion Galleria was still vibrant, still echoing with laughter, footsteps, music. But at midnight it slept, except for one figure. A little girl, Zara's daughter, tiptoed into the quiet mall, her hand in her father's. She stopped in front of the bronze statue and stared. "Daddy, is she really gone?" David knelt beside her. "No, she's in the walls, in the lights, in every open door. She's in you." The child reached out and placed a rose at the statue's feet. "I want to be like her." David smiled. "You already are." As the lights of the mall dimmed, a soft breeze blew through the glass doors. And somewhere, somehow, Mama Dunny smiled too,